Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February the 26th till March the 3rd, 2024. We are going to have quite an interesting week ahead of us. This is because it is going to feel like almost like two opposing or two contradictory forces by their nature are coexisting side by side with one another, and this is where it is a strong activation of Aquarius energy, which is all about the future, which is basically, even on a very deeply personal level, regardless of which area of your life is ruled by Aquarius, it is still a very future oriented and cerebral, intellectual, higher mind energy, if that makes sense. So that is all about the future because the mind wants to go forward. The mind wants to grow. It wants to evolve. It wants to, consume information, and that, can be done in the best possible, optimal way, so to speak, in the linearity forward in the future. Now, the other energy, the other sign, better said, that is going to receive a very powerful activation is Pisces. Now, Pisces is all about the past. Actually, from a alchemical, esoteric perspective, Pisces, in a way, it's quite atemporal. This is where the present, past, and future meld into one. It is the divine plane, so time does not exist there. However, Pisces does give the illusion of time, the past, everything, the Akashic records, everything that has been taken place and stored in the collective memory. Now, actually, if we speak about the Akashic records, those are ruled, or better said, co-ruled, or more than one signs take part of the Akashic record. So, of course, Pisces, as I said earlier, Aquarius is more like the processor of it because, Akashic record is also future. So Aquarius takes, there is also Sagittarius, the great download, so to speak. And there is actually Gemini, which is like the where you knock on the door. It is the access way, the access point to the Akashic records. Now, of course, Scorpio, I'm not including Scorpio because that is more like a tool within the Akashic records. But anyway, this week is definitely going to be about the Akashic records as well. What is going to be revealed, or what are we going to reflect upon, both individually and collectively alike? Aquarius and both Pisces is the spirit of communion. All of us are one. Aquarius is the collective, but also the individual component. So the individual. Then we cannot forget the larger theme of this period, North Node in the sign of Aries, that highlights very powerfully the individual. And the North Node isn't alone. There is planetoid Aries, long staying, but still with the North Node in the same sign, she is more active, very, very much about the individual. And then there is Chiron, individually, I am kind of healing and wounds. So it's all about identity as well. So we can see how the dichotomy is already there. Past and future, self and the collective. All of us are one. However, many times the wholeness of the uh, integrity needs to focus on just one, the singularity. This is also basically heralded by Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. So just getting to that 1 degree, very, very powerful energies. So this week is really about the coexistence of these two forces, where there's a very, don't get me wrong, it's a very powerful karmic week where events are gonna happen. However, these events seem to be focused on two or maybe even just one area of life where past and future meet and things get done. and the other areas of life are almost like poof, vanished into thin air. It's almost like they're not even there, they're not even active. So this is where there is a lot of intensity, activity in one or maybe two, three areas of life. And there is like a very strong silence, everything else. Now, collectively speaking, maybe it's not necessarily the case, but collectively speaking, whatever is causing the problems, whatever is causing the collective stress, the collective unease, the collective unrest, all those things are going to be greatly emphasized and focused on. So being detached on a healthy level is quite recommended because it's going to be like salt in the wound. One of the main aspects of this week is Venus. Okay, towards the end of the week, however, it's getting stronger and stronger, even at the beginning, as we progress towards the end. Venus squaring Uranus. So financial instability is one of the key elements here. But instability means that something that maybe yesterday was not very valuable gets sky high, and something that is perma value is collapsing, it is crashing. But at the same time, Mercury is in the sign of Pisces. We must take this very much into consideration because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So in its own unique, higher, much higher way, it also rules communication. Let me give you a synchronicity. Uranus is usually the ruler of synchronicity. Synchronicity is nothing else but higher communication. Okay, it's miraculous to us and it says so much, and but what it always is just communication with the divine intelligence, with the divine mind. A moment when these two apparently separate minds meet at one point. This is where the universe waves at you hello, and you say hello, and following from that moment, something is going to be deducted by us. But of course, with these synchronicities, especially in the now, in the present, some are not as relevant and not as important as others, because we must never forget that the universe, just like us, just like many animals, likes to play and have fun in its own divine ways. So many times our confusion and us not being able to understand something, no matter how much we obsess on it, is just the universe game and play with us. Like the trail of breadcrumbs, but then it stops and we don't know which direction, and we can get it wrong. But many times getting it wrong in this sense, where we just cannot decide for the synchronicity, is really just getting it right in another way. You know what I mean? So when the universe plays with us, we're always safe. But our minds panic the most exactly at those times. But this is our human nature. Aquarius humanitarianism, Pluto in it, highlights very much our humanity in any way. Even the negative way, but even in the fun, clumsy way, our deficits, and we can smile about it. But this week is not going to be all that full of that light-hearted type of smiles, because the key aspect, the superstar, astrological superstar of this week, is a triple conjunction between Saturn, Mercury, and the Sun. It's not just a Mercury Kazemi, but it's also Saturn. So this is a very powerful reality check. And this is also Mercury about communication, where certain communications, are fated. And others, this is where maybe interpreted, of course, the right way. Fate is trying to communicate with us. Fate is trying to convey a message. And this is where we don't need the most sophisticated, intuitive, or emotionally intelligent psychology skills. or big, deep, ancient wisdom skills or anything like that to get them right and interpret them correctly. We just need to look within and take it very seriously. You know, really, really seriously without the ego, especially the lower ego, you know, especially the ego which doesn't, which takes, you know, let's say real life, physical life, always more seriously than spiritual life, you know. This is where this aspect is, of course, for many people it's going to be deeply spiritual, but for others it's not actually spiritual. It is just a moment of deep honesty with yourself, the deepest and most arcane part of yourself, your unconscious, even collectively speaking, because Pisces is the collective unconscious. And how can this, the actions of groups speak, or inactions, in this case, Pisces is dual, speak about their true beliefs. This is like, let me give you an example. This is when a group, someone affirms something that I believe in peace, for example, but if your actions or inactions speak the opposite way, then you can imagine that your belief is a bit misguided because your inner belief is the opposite, because that's why you act that way. So collectively, we are gonna see a lot of calling out in this sense, you know, for example, calling out politicians that don't say one thing where you're doing the opposite, because we're not stupid. This is just one example. But, you know, Pisces, this is about spiritual people and spiritual leaders, Saturn as high priests, for example, as well, where in one way or another, they're going to be called out, as in, how is there some kind of dichotomy between what you preach and what actually, you know, is deductive of your actions or inactions again? So this is how it may play out collectively, but individually speaking, it is a powerful moment of truth that we have with ourselves. And whatever our inner being, whatever fate, why not through synchronicities, is trying to tell us, we would be truly wise to listen, because this triple conjunction also sextiles, not to the minute, you know, not with mathematical precision, but a very tight sextile nonetheless, Jupiter. So this is where it's very powerful, and it can be a massive moment of wisdom, a moment when you stare your faith in a real sense in the eye, when something that you powerfully believe in comes into your life in myriad of ways, because Pisces is mutable. It can be anything. For some people, it can come as a deep confirmation of their faith or principles. Doesn't need to be spiritual in that sense. Someone's own principles, someone's own questions of morality, what they thought about or how they felt about and thought about and recollected the past. History changes. This is definitely one of those aspects and weeks where history changes. Now, you might ask, well, how do you mean? Do you mean that in a Mandela effect way? Maybe. That is definitely one of the key themes in this week, energetic themes. Something, the past is different than we knew it, if that makes sense. But from a more down to earth perspective, psychologically, imagine where, when a trauma heals, for example, well, you don't look at the past, what happened, what caused that trauma, with the same eyes, with the same mind, with the same heart, with the same emotions. You look at it and feel about it so differently, hence the healing so very on, not just this week, but all throughout. Actually, we are nearing the end of February, so yes, this week Chiron conjunct the North Node still. If you want to look at it in another, Chiron conjuncts the mean node this week. So it's powerfully healing. Something heals. But before healing can take place, or in the process of healing, many times we need to look at hard to face truth within ourselves. Some of those hard to face truth is when the reason why trauma isn't healing is actually us. Mentally, very superficially, we might think, well, I want healing. How can this even be? But if we dissect what's going on deep within us, we might catch ourselves so many times where we stand in our way actively because we don't want to forgive, we don't want to heal, or we need the position of the victim, sometimes towards ourselves, not towards other, not I'm not talking about where someone is behaving in that way, even though that can be included, but this is where when we victimize ourselves to ourselves for excuses. Some of these are very tricky. You know what I mean? So, and the opposite is true. When we have a really, really good excuse, but that excuse is like real, and we don't want to accept it, we don't want to pardon ourselves, that is also included here. So something happens where that is cast light upon Sun, the Apollo. Whenever Sun meets with Mercury, that's like the Apollo, the prophecy. When we can, and especially in Pisces, mysticism, our dreams, our anything, any altered state of consciousness, anything can get us there. Something is bound to get us there to very powerful, deep inner truth. So since I spoke about it so deeply, this conjunction takes perfects on the 28th of February. And this is where Saturn is in the picture. So it's very, very karmic. A karmic truth, a karmic realization is revealed that changes something for the better. Saturn is reconstruction sometimes, especially that it's covering new ground. It's out of its shadow path. So karma is playing out, it's going forward. Things from the past are meeting certain closures, healings, terminations. But, as I said, this has a myriad of ways of manifestation. For some people, it's a karmic challenge. If you believe in something deeply, prove it. That's because Saturn, we must not forget, is the great, seen by the ancients, the great malefic. So it's responsible for temptations. And Pisces, the duality. Usually Saturn makes something harder or hard as hell. And that's where it tests our loyalty, our devotion, our faith, if we are true to our principles, or in which degree are we true to it. Other times, it acts the opposite way. It makes something so easy that it just wants to make you lazy. And all with Saturn, usually the right thing to do, how to overcome the temptation, is measure. When there is an opportunity, okay, it's that easy. It's not specific. Usually to Saturnian type of people, those who are very strict with themselves. Okay, you didn't work for it. Saturn's elements aren't fulfilled, but it's an opportunity. So take it. You're not going to do this every single time. So once in a life or once in a blue moon, it's okay for things to be easy. And this usually to the very strict and hardworking archetypes, the Saturnian people. To the opposite, the Jupiterian people, who always like it easy and optimistic and opportunistic. It makes something very, very strong, very, very difficult, very hard, very challenging, very unlucky, something that they really love. And this teaches them to be enduring, to what it means to have conviction, if that makes sense. It doesn't matter if it's not as easy as it usually is. If I love it, I stand by it. May this be a relationship, a person, a principle, a faith, a religion, anything. So this is one of the ways it's going to play out this week for other people. But, for most of us, it is a powerful moment of truth and honesty with the self. It is where we are our own psychoanalysts, and we just consult ourselves. We get to the bottom of things, especially the past, especially things that left traumatic imprints on us. Mercury and Pisces. Now, this isn't going to be a strong cerebral brainstorming energy. This is going to be an emotional energy where what matters is that we understand it with the heart. And the mind, if it functions in an emotionally intelligent way, it will not abide to the same rational logical rules, so it can understand. Maybe that's the best incorrect word to use here, but that is exactly what Mercury and Pisces is. It's debilitated because it is as far away from its comfort zone, Virgo, as it is, but it has an adaptive quality to it. If it understands emotionally, empathically, with that instinctual even type of common sense, or a spiritual type of common sense, Mercury and Pisces, this is where put yourself into heaven's position. Look at your life, your situation, or whatever through heaven's eyes, because that can be so revelatory, because you don't um, take into consideration the logics, the down-to-earth logics anymore. So yes, I'm gonna now, sorry for this long intro, gonna share my screen, but there's not a lot of days to show, to be totally honest with you. So 26 is where we still have the Venus and Mars conjunction. So this is one of the energies that is very strongly highlighting and emphasizing Aquarius, along with Pluto, of course, and other planetoids that are there. One of them is Chariklo, an asteroid of healing, named after the nymph Chariklo, wife of Chiron. So anyway, what matters is that at the beginning of the week, these two planets that perfected their conjunction at around 6 degree of Aquarius this week that is passing, but they still dance together in the sky quite closely at the beginning of the week, and then Venus is gonna overcome, as in pick up speed and leave Mars. But at the beginning of the week, where they're still tightly conjunct, Mars at 10 degree, Venus at 11, almost 12 degree. So that means that their square with Jupiter is also pretty tight still. It's waning, but at the beginning of the week, Monday, it's very tight. So what does this mean? Now, personally speaking, Venus and Mars conjunction, we're pursuing something. We need something, we want something, we have a dream, we have a modus operandi to follow our principles, but something is tumultuous in our lives because Jupiter is the amplification. It expands it, it makes everything seem much more important. So instead of ambition, it gives us kind of anxiety and overthinking. I know that overthinking, not usually in the classic sense, because Mercury is in Pisces. So it's actually like flooded. It's like fog, brain fog, or mushy brain and stuff like that. It's not where your brain is plugged into electricity. However, the autopilot is, because one of Mars's expressions is the autopilot, where we program something, it has a pattern, and it just always executes mentally, especially because Aquarius is a mental air sign, mental energy. So that part of us is going to be overwhelmed. Another possible expression is a lot of communication. But this is where solicitations, we are the ones being contacted. Or maybe for other people, we have situations in our lives that need us to contact a lot of people or steps, or, a loan, for example, buying a big investment, for example. But, this can also come from our friends group that we belong to. For a lot of people, this also represents activities where they do something in front of a group. Like this can be from academic, where you present a paper, an essay. It can be group meeting. It can be performing arts. It can be a show. It can be where you perform, you do something in front of other people. So expanded by Jupiter, the square, it will stress you out, but you must go ahead with it, if you know what I mean. Now also Jupiter, this Jupiter square requires a lot of instinctual, a sense of balance from us in order to get it right. Because, Venus and Mars conjunction in Aquarius, meetings, partnerships, contracts, businesses, romances, sensual meetings, anything that comes into our lives, may that be a person, Venus, Mars, of course, or values, or firm, or legal, or anything, information, Aquarius, that comes into our lives, well, that can be, how should I say, a little bit too much. We might worry about it too much. It can seem way bigger, way more important, way more something than it actually is. So we need to approach it with a basic wisdom, where we know that this is one of life's situations when we are just naturally, normally inclined to magnify, to amplify, to put the drama there. For example, Venus Jupiter square. Do I invest or don't I invest? And you just don't know, because maybe your mind says something, your instincts say something else. What do you trust, your sense of logic, Aquarius, or that in basic instinct where you judge values with the gut, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus? What do you trust? So this is a tricky energy. So look at it, if you can, from the perspective of a wise elderly person. And Jupiter, it will challenge Jupiter may be what you believe in, your values, your usual but strong values which are specific to you. And Venus and Mars, the new, the revolutionary, the next, the extraordinary, the alien, that which is definitely outside of your comfort zone. Jupiter does need us to step out, but that doesn't mean to abandon ship, because we may have one foot in our comfort zone and the other one out, if that is how we do things. So yeah, now externally speaking, collectively speaking, this square, again, it will have something about economic up and down, economic instability, imminent collapse somewhere, or some things value rising sky high. Now, this will bombard us, both sides of this, or all expressions of this. However, these may not necessarily be true. Why? Because Mercury is in Pisces. Pisces is the illusion. And with Saturn and this triple conjunction can have a not so, a dark, actually a dark side to it, a very dark side to it. Why? Well, Pisces is the spirit. There is such thing as dark spirit. There's such a thing as lies, manipulation, smoke and mirrors, deception, psychological warfare, mass manipulation, if you will. Saturn gives the power, the modus operandi. The sun gives the opportunity to shine the light of illusion. Mercury, it will trick the mind. Knowledge of psychology works like a charm. So not necessarily every information or every imminent whatever they want us to believe is true. So take everything with a pinch of salt. And, if your inner being simply doesn't fear something, you don't feel the fear. Of course, after you work yourself up, your mind, of course, after you feel but if you, at first impact, you just don't feel the fear, then chances are your instinct knows it isn't true. Like, let me give you an example. The economy crashes tomorrow. You hear it in the news or wherever, and you just feel like, I'm not going to be affected. Then don't research. You know what I mean? Don't research. Don't give your mind the opportunity to drive you crazy. So we must apply very powerful wisdom here. Another thing is justice. Jupiter, planet of justice. Justice for the collective. Rebellion. This is also a highly rebellious energy because Jupiter expands the rebellious nature of Aquarius for justice, for equality, or new laws. Aquarius cannot counter or be in conflict, legal conflict, with our basic morals. You know what I mean? So we will see this play out on the world stage in a very relevant way. But again, I must say, the saving grace all throughout the week and all throughout the month is the sextile Jupiter holds with Saturn. And I'm not gonna focus on this all that much because I mentioned this in almost every horoscope. This grounds us in that wisdom that I've been speaking about. When it comes to wisdom, it grounds us into common sense, but where that common sense is almost provided by spirit, you know, and we see our faith play out before our eyes, because this is a period, because as in what we believe in, we see it one way or collectively, symbolically, through synchronicities, through our own personal adventure in. But karma is gonna play out this week. As I said, the new is coming. Venus and Mars conjunction. That starts a cycle. It is karmic in itself, where new alliances, new contexts, new friends, new principles, new ideas, new meetings. But at the same time, Saturn in the sign of Pisces, closing karma, closing the past. And these two happen simultaneously. This is where the cycles overlap one another. This is where there isn't a moment between beginning and termination. Sometimes they just overlap. The new beginning comes before the closure, or the closure came and there is a great pause between that and the new beginning. Time is not very linear, hence again the Mandela effect things. Or when we go back to the past personally, through hypnosis, through regression, through us remembering moment of deep contemplation, remembering something, reanalyzing it, looking at it from a different perspective. Once we were a child and we felt it through from a child's perception, now we are adults, but adult not in the sense of adult as in a mature child, a matured and ripened inner child. We live it through like that in form of memory, but how powerfully healing an act like that is, a forgiveness, communing with the deceased, so to speak, our ancestors, where, let me give you an example. Maybe someone is deeply troubled on a soul level that they couldn't say goodbye to a loved one because of fate and circumstances. Under this conjunction, something happens. They get that connection with the soul of the person and they feel the peace, they feel at ease. They find, even if it's not like necromancy, even if it's not Ouija board, you just feel it in your heart that it's like that and that's it. For other people, it's more spectacular, but it doesn't, you find a certain kind of forgiveness, or you commune with the ancestors, you know, grandparents, great grandparents, or people in your life who are no longer, you connect to them in a on a soul way, and you know that they're okay, and it gives you peace, it gives you power, it gives you clarity. Saturn and the Sun and Mercury. So speaking about that, let's go on the 28th and see. So we are on the 28th now. And this is where we have the conjunction in Pisces 9th degree. And you know, Pisces is also greatly empowered by the ruler Neptune at the very end of the sign, but still Neptune's presence gives even this triple conjunction a very strong emphasis. And there's also a dwarf planet there. Now I'm gonna try to pronounce it, Gokun or something like that, because the spelling is almost unreadable, but it is a Chinese water god. So again, we might see issues around water, expressions around water, but that water may just be our inner emotion, clarifying, the sun highlighting. And if Pisces is the unconscious, both individually, but also the collective unconscious, the great mystery, the great beyond, there is a illuminatory factor there, which leads us to a certain kind of understanding, Mercury. Or us, as I said, history changes. History might change because of a great archaeological discovery being announced this week. Because Saturn is the fossils and everything that is solid still intact beneath the earth. Pisces is the ancient world. Sun and Mercury, it gets discovered. Mercury, water planet. It washes off the soil and you see the object, the coin or archaeological for what it is. So this is gonna be quite tumultuous even in, and you see the sextile with Jupiter. So again, Jupiter, truth, inner truth, faith, understanding, wisdom, righteousness, what is just and what is not. So this is a very powerful conjunction. And you know, Jupiter is in the sign of an earthly sign of Taurus, values, the healing perhaps of value systems. Or Taurus, how you feel physically about yourself. Am I pretty enough? Am I skinny enough? Am I whatever enough? Something enough? Attractive enough? And this triple conjunction gives this a light, a power, something making a permanent change, Saturn, where you get the answer, you are enough. Or the reason why you do not feel enough is truly this and that. And it heals you. You see it for what it is. Very, very, very powerful. And needless to say, this sextile is a dwarf planet, which means Jupiter trines it. Quaoar. Quaoar is related to song, to dance, the creational power of sounds and vibrations. You know, in ancient legends, in so very many places, the gods created things, people from just words, speech, sound, song. Song, especially for indigenous tribes, are very, very sacred and magical. And Gwawar is the ruler of that. So from an artistic perspective, this is so good. Singing can actually do miracles in a real sense. Spiritually speaking, as in when you actually listen or sing powerful songs, sacred songs, mantras, religious songs, etc. But this is also just simply in a magical way where any type of song or usage of voice or dance, art in that sense alters reality in a healing way, in a fun way, in an alchemical way, in a I cannot believe this manifested kind of way. But if you're a singer, if you are into that, and do not forget, Venus and Mars conjunction means that many people are going to be on the stage. You know, there is an event for a lot of artists or people. So, and Jupiter, don't let Jupiter stress you out, because this sextile, dual bisextile, is so good. Because Quaoar is in Capricorn, mastery. You might master a lot from previous lives, especially artistic skills to play an instrument or whatever. So for artists and for magic, for anything where there is also sound waves, frequency or music involved or any kind of art, it's so, so good. It's a very good week. Now on the 1st, we have the Sun sextiling Jupiter, and which also means that Mercury sextiling Jupiter, because on the 1st already, Mercury took the lead. So Mercury is way ahead of both the Sun and Saturn. So Mercury was the first to hold the sextile, now the Sun. This is really, really good for, as I said, healing the past, healing values, unleashing your creativity, uh, for love, but in a way of fated love. And it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, but rather in the sense that what you love deeply, instinctually, that love is like an energy that you're feeding into it. So of course, what you love comes into your life. And this in any way, shape, sense, and form. So, and Mercury, that's communication, the power of words, healing, understanding, forgiveness, and healing the mindset, healing a way of understanding has actual, manifestations or repercussions in the most positive way in physical reality, a sextile. This is truly the power of positive, optimistic thoughts, not in a silly way or in a toxic way, but in a way that is rooted in real wisdom. Jupiter. So even with things that have to do with ancient wisdom, the applicability of it, healing, we must not forget that all of this is taking place under Chiron North Node conjunction. So new healing techniques, ways, researches, anything is also coming out as we speak. So this is a powerful healing energy as well. And really, really good for peace, even though Mars squaring Jupiter is not all that good for peace, to be totally honest with you. And Mars, we don't really have to worry the most about Mars Jupiter square, because later on, not this week, but next week, but even this week it begins, Mars square Uranus, two of the quickest energies of the zodiac, unpredictable, Aquarius and Uranus, the ruler of it. So this will be very chaotic. Accidents, coincidences, truth just coming out in a stark way. But again, when I say truth coming out with a pinch, everything with a pinch of salt, disruptions on the internet, disruptions in travel, flights delayed, flight cancels, everything that is quite disruptive, strikes, protests. It is a massive rebellious energy, civil war, individuals against the collective. It is a very, very tumultuous energy, and I don't want to focus on the dark side, especially that Pluto's presence, sheer presence in Aquarius, is amplifying. And one thing that I would like to mention about that triple conjunction, Saturn, Sun, and Mercury on the 28th, that triple conjunction at 9 degrees of the sign of Pisces. Well, the Sabian symbol of that 9 to 10 degree of Pisces goes like this: an aviator flying through ground obscuring clouds. Now, this is so beautiful because the aviator, that means a Uranian archetype in itself, the genius or the revolutionary, the inventor, the brainstormer, the eureka person, the Einstein, it does, and the courage, the daring, the risk, Uranus, in the name of fulfilling ultimately your own curiosity, regardless of if that curiosity is rooted in a higher principle, as in the knowledge will serve, or if the curiosity is more, you're just something, I don't necessarily want to say selfish or self-centered, or just your thing, because that can come out of instinct. It can come out not just the ego. Pholus, for example, is an asteroid which governs curiosity that burns all, curiosity killed the cat, that type of curiosity. But it doesn't matter, where curiosity is a driving force. And flying through ground obscuring clouds, the clouds, the mist of Pisces, piercing through the veil, the triple conjunction. And this is not just any planet here, not a new moon, not a full moon, but a Sun, Mercury, and Saturn conjunction. The reality of it, the truth of it, the power of it, it changes you forever. Saturn permanence, because you gaze beyond that ground obscuring, that which you never ever had access to before. So you see something life changing, revolutionary. But you can imagine that this goes so well with Saturn's archetype, because that pilot, that aviator, imagine the hours, the hard work, the pain, the risk, the other, like, let me just give you an example. Other people are at parties having a good time, or romantic relationships, the best of life, while the aviator is alone and putting everything he has into his goal, his ideal, his principle, very Aquarian. And of course, the moment when the success is there, well, he deserves it. Saturn, he is rewarded for his sacrifices. It pays off. And it doesn't just pay off for him, it pays off for everyone he shares the experience with in any way, shape, and form. So the Sabian symbol does mean something groundbreaking, karma breaking, or where things align in order to set you free in a truth. So a very, very karmic week. And Saturn, whatever happens, it comes for the long term. It may, of course, not happen straight away, but this is like a very quick energy. So give it 2 weeks, and karma will definitely play out one way or another in at least one area of life. And then I would like to go to the very end of the week on the 3rd. So the 3rd, here we are. And this is important because you see here Venus at 19th degree of Aquarius, and it is squaring Uranus. It is perfecting her square with Uranus. So Venus is currency. Venus is, economics, value, what is value, what is worth. And Uranus is surprise, surprise. And these two planets rule each other's signs. Venus is the ruler of Taurus, where Uranus is. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, where Venus is. So a very powerful synergy. And because Taurus is about money, currency, banking, etc., this is going to be some kind of surprise, shock, instability. Something collapses or another thing rises so quickly and it lasts for a moment. So anything that is crypto, there's going to be activity there. But this is where maybe crypto has succeeded in itself by something even newer, new currency, new value, new things on the internet. Technology shocks us. And of course, relationship, love, sensuality, because Taurus is the five senses. We are shocked. Something surprises us. Like, let me give you an example. There's a sensual meeting, and who you meet with is really outside of your usual preferences, but you decide to, something is curious within you. And it happens. And you can not imagine, cannot understand why it was, for example, so good when it shouldn't be, or it is so atypical of you, but you had such a good time. This is one of the examples of this. Now, of course, Uranus is usually trouble. If you are in a stable bond, you can imagine that this will not get you anywhere good. So if curiosity gets the better of you, so put these types of attractions in context where it is exactly those attractions or truth or revelations or whatever gets us also in trouble. But closing up Mars at 14 degrees, it is, starting its square with Uranus. So as I said before, the accidents, internet, the solar flares, are earthquake risk. This is again, but this is also where something comes from the sky. Weird weather, unusual weather phenomenal, electricity, electrical discharges, internet blockouts, or internet even censorship, terrorism on via the internet, or mediatic battles, informational battles. So in cyber warfare, but full on. So this energy is, and something about money, an economic earthquake. But how true it is, we cannot know, because Mercury is still in Pisces and closing up to Neptune. Neptune is also in Pisces. So this is where we can be very easily manipulated. So I'm going to leave it at this. Thank you everyone for listening. I really hope that this was helpful and you enjoyed it. Wishing everyone a blessed week. And again, please embrace whatever messages or signs or whatever truth your inner being is telling you, no matter how uncomfortable or not easy to look at they may be. This is where we're truly doing ourselves a service. Thank you again. Until next time. Bye for now.